Wesley Evans never imagined he would need to disguise himself in his own cafe chain, but as sales at one of his locations continued to decline and customer complaints began to accumulate, he realized something was amiss. Feedback from his district manager, Dave, was filled with ambiguous references to short staffing, sluggish service, and the typical justifications. However, Wesley remained unconvinced. This cafe occupied a prime spot, boasted a loyal clientele, and there seemed to be no justification for its struggles. The enterprise had been a family legacy for more than 3 decades, inherited from his father, who transformed it from a modest neighborhood cafe into a network of 7 establishments. Wesley dedicated years to refreshing the brand, broadening its menu, and maintaining the warm, inviting environment that his father had cherished. However, as the organization expanded, he shifted his attention towards strategic planning and distanced himself from the daily operations. Perhaps that was an error in judgment. Thus, he made the choice to operate incognito. Wesley underwent a remarkable change, allowing his beard to flourish, coloring his graying hair a deeper shade of brown, and donning bold, thick-rimmed glasses. He slipped into a worn hoodie and distressed jeans, embodying the essence of a subdued, unemployed, middle-aged individual. As the store employees had only encountered him during corporate meetings or on the company website, they would have no opportunity to identify him in real life. He stepped into the cafe as the afternoon waned, the bustling crowd having thinned to a quiet hum. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, yet an unsettling feeling crept in right away. The atmosphere felt lifeless. The atmosphere was devoid of any warm exchanges between staff and patrons. The staff appeared either overwhelmed or utterly disengaged. Wesley stood patiently in line, observing an elderly man struggling with his wallet at the register. The man retrieved a handful of coins, methodically counting them onto the counter. "Apologies, my dear," the elderly gentleman spoke gently. "Today I find myself without my card. I trust this meets your approval." The barista, a tall young man with a name tag that read Tyler, expressed his exasperation with a theatrical eye roll. "Can you believe this?" He let out a derisive laugh. The old man hesitated, his hands trembling slightly as he counted out the coins. "It's merely a little coffee," he remarked. "I believe that suffices." Tyler let out a quick breath, scanning the surroundings as though he anticipated support from someone. "This isn't just some automated dispenser, my friend. You're causing a delay for everyone behind you." Wesley experienced a sudden lurch in his stomach. His father had created this cafe as a haven where all could feel embraced. The sight of an employee ridiculing an elderly customer for something as trivial as paying with coins ignited a deep sense of anger within him. The elderly gentleman began to gather the coins, his cheeks flushed with a sense of humiliation. "I wish to avoid any complications. I will simply—" "No, sir, you're perfectly all right," another voice interjected. A young woman with dark curls, clad in the familiar barista uniform, approached Tyler. Her name tag displayed Maria. "I will tally it for you." She disregarded Tyler's annoyed look and calmly counted the coins, offering a warm smile to the customer. She reassured him that he possessed more than sufficient. "And next time, just let it go. It brings us joy to assist you." Wesley observed the elderly man offering her a thankful smile, yet Tyler had more to say. Maria passed the man his coffee and then pivoted back to Tyler. He whispered softly, "You didn't have to do that. What should I do?" Maria retorted, her tone steady yet resolute. "Promote that. Now folks are going to believe they can simply toss a heap of quarters on the counter whenever they please." Wesley tightened his jaw. The manner in which Tyler expressed himself, the blatant disregard in his tone, indicated that this was far from an isolated incident. How many other customers experienced this kind of treatment? How many individuals left feeling out of place in a cafe that was meant to embody warmth and consideration? Wesley advanced in line, maintaining the guise of a typical customer. He maintained a steady tone. "Is there an issue with using coins for payment?" With a heavy sigh, Tyler exhaled. "Listen, it's simply frustrating. Okay? Brings everything to a halt." Maria cast him a piercing glance. "It requires what, An additional 30 seconds. One cannot fully grasp the complexities of others' circumstances. Perhaps that is everything they possess. Tyler merely shrugged, his disinterest in the argument evident. Whatever you say. Wesley understood the necessity of maintaining his facade for a while longer, needing to gather more insights before disclosing his true identity. Yet, an instinct deep within him was guiding him toward the necessary action. He requested a black coffee and settled into a spot by the counter, observing the surroundings with keen attention. Maria maintained her composure and professionalism, welcoming each customer with a warm smile, even in the face of Tyler's evident attitude issues. Several other team members toiled in the background, some bustling with energy, while others seemed to shuffle along, as if yearning to be anywhere but here. The cafe had a certain charm, yet it bore the marks of carelessness. Several tables had empty napkin dispensers. Several chairs bore remnants of crumbs, while the trash can by the door was brimming over. The culmination of these details led to a disappointing customer experience. With each sip of his coffee, Wesley tuned in intently to the murmurs and exchanges taking place behind the counter. "I don't even know why you care so much," Tyler said to Maria as they toiled away. "Do you really believe that the corporation cares about these individuals?" Maria polished the espresso machine, her jaw clenched. "I am concerned because it aligns with ethical principles, and corporations are expected to show concern as well. Isn't that the essence of the brand?" Tyler let out a derisive snort. "Indeed, the corporate presence is absent, and the manager seems indifferent as well. This location is quite absurd." Wesley's stomach churned. The manager shows no concern. That clarified many things. If leadership showed indifference, it's no surprise that employees like Tyler believed they could act rudely without consequence. Wesley had witnessed all he needed to for the day. After finishing his coffee, he rose and exited, leaving silence in his wake. Yet he had more to say. This cafe represented the heritage of his family, and now he was determined to mend it from the core outward. The following morning, Wesley made his way to the cafe, arriving earlier than usual, clad in his familiar worn hoodie and jeans. On this occasion, he was seeking employment. He had previously set up a false identity with the help of a reliable acquaintance in human resources. Lucas Foster, a professional with a history in retail, yet lacking any experience in the food service industry. It was the ideal opportunity to begin at the ground level and observe how everything genuinely functioned from within. As he crossed the threshold, it was clear that the ambience remained unchanged from the previous night. The cafe fell short of the inviting atmosphere it was meant to convey. The music emanating from the speakers was barely audible. Employees shuffled about with a lack of energy, and customers appeared to be more of a burden than valued visitors. At the counter, the manager, a robust man with receding hair named Greg, was bent over his phone, hardly paying attention to anyone around him. Wesley stepped forward, his hands tucked into his pockets, embodying the essence of an enthusiastic yet somewhat apprehensive candidate. Greg hardly lifted his gaze. "I'm reaching out regarding the job posting. Position of barrister." Greg let out a sharp breath, treating the moment as a bothersome interruption rather than a duty he was meant to fulfill. He cast a quick look toward the rear and called out for someone to emerge. A young woman in her late 20s stepped out of the stockroom, her hands being wiped clean on her apron. "Maria, handle this," Greg muttered, his attention drifting back to his phone. Maria's expression shifted to one of surprise, yet she nodded in agreement, guiding Wesley to a quaint table tucked away at the back. She retrieved a wrinkled application form from beneath the counter and offered him a pen. He completed it swiftly, ensuring his handwriting had a subtle variation from his typical tidy script. Maria studied the form intently before leaning in a bit closer. Text. Wesley shrugged, his tone relaxed, as he pondered the question. He simply needed a job. She thought a cafe might serve as a suitable backdrop for her work, observing him intently. "I've mostly worked in food service and retail, but I'm a quick learner." Maria gave a small nod. "Truly, if you possess even a hint of dependability, you surpass at least half of those around you." Wesley arched an eyebrow. "It was that bad?" She paused for a moment before letting out a sigh. Greg is indifferent, Tyler talks a lot but does little, and as for corporate, it's hard to tell if they even notice what's happening here anymore. Wesley maintained a calm demeanor. What's the duration of your stay here? Nearly a year has passed, and initially, everything seemed fine. However, it has been deteriorating recently. Lack of guidance and responsibility leads to customers being viewed as nuisances, and those who strive for excellence find themselves isolated. She reclined, folding her arms across her chest. Are you certain you want to take on this role? Wesley let out a soft laugh. Unfazed by the obstacle, Maria scrutinized him once more before rising to her feet. Very well, you've got the job, though it's clear Greg isn't one to express it himself. Greg hardly paid any attention to Wesley when Maria informed him that the new hire was set to begin. He merely waved a hand in dismissal and mumbled, "Show him the ropes." Maria guided Wesley behind the counter, presenting him with an apron. Okay, let's find out what you're capable of. She guided him through the fundamentals of operating the espresso machine, showing him where the supplies were kept and explaining how to manage orders. Wesley paid close attention, ensuring he embodied the spirit of a true novice absorbing new knowledge. Before long, Tyler showed up, his face already marked by annoyance. "So you're the new guy," Tyler muttered, his eyes glued to his phone. Wesley gave a slight nod. "Indeed. Is that you, Lucas?" "Great," Tyler said flatly. "Just don't slow me down." Maria exhaled sharply. "Or you could actually help train him instead of just standing there." Tyler dismissed it with a scoff, clearly uninterested in taking on the responsibility. Maria paid him no mind and persisted in demonstrating to Wesley the art of drink preparation. As customers filtered in, Wesley observed intently the manner in which they were received. Maria exuded a calm and effective demeanor, consistently welcoming others with genuine warmth. Tyler, in stark contrast, hardly acknowledged the customers, carelessly flinging drinks onto the counter in silence. At a certain moment, a woman pushing a stroller placed an order for a cappuccino. While she fumbled through her bag in search of her wallet, her toddler let out a loud whine. Tyler let out a low, frustrated sound. "Wonderful, just what we needed, more disorder." Maria cast him a piercing glance, but just as she was about to speak, Wesley intervened. "I've got it," he said with a calm demeanor, offering the woman her drink and giving her a reassuring nod. She smiled with appreciation. "Thank you," Tyler sighed. "You're putting in quite the effort, aren't you, Wesley? Or perhaps you're not putting in any effort at all." Tyler cast him a lingering glance before breaking into a smirk. "All right, newcomer. Let's find out how long you can endure." As time went on, Wesley observed the underlying problems within the cafe. Greg hardly moved from his position at the back, only appearing when he needed to collect something. He seldom engaged with the team and rarely connected with patrons. Tyler treated the cafe as if it were his own private amusement park, putting forth minimal effort and ridiculing those who genuinely tried. Yet Wesley observed something more. Maria was the one keeping it all intact. She took initiative, handled customer interactions with grace, and tidied up after her peers without needing a prompt. As the shift drew to a close, Wesley had witnessed enough to validate his prior suspicions. The cafe's struggles weren't due to its location or the nature of the business. The failure stemmed from a deficiency in leadership, or more accurately, the absence of it altogether. As he loosened his apron, Maria rested against the counter, observing him intently. "What are your thoughts on this?" Wesley delicately dabbed his hands with a napkin. "This place has the potential to improve significantly if individuals genuinely invested their concern." Maria offered a subtle, understanding smile. "Indeed, it all begins at the highest level, doesn't it?" Wesley locked eyes with her, his thoughts racing ahead to his next step. Tomorrow he would delve deeper, and soon, all would bear witness to the one who had been observing from the shadows all along. Wesley showed up at the cafe bright and early the following morning, seamlessly merging with the other staff members arriving for their shifts. The air within was heavy with the residual aroma of yesterday's coffee, yet the ambience remained monotonous, almost robotic. The staff shuffled about with a lack of energy, offering only perfunctory hellos, and, predictably, Greg was absent from the scene. Maria stood behind the counter, deftly tying her apron while casting a quick glance upward. "You returned," she remarked, her tone a blend of mild curiosity and understated surprise. Determined to try once more, Wesley said, rolling up his sleeves. Maria offered him a cloth. "Begin by giving the tables a thorough wipe down. Last night it went undone." Without a moment's pause, he grabbed the rag and began to wipe down every surface, observing the remnants of dried coffee rings and scattered crumbs that lingered. If this was the norm, it wasn't merely the customer service that had deteriorated. It was fundamental maintenance as well. As he toiled away, Greg eventually appeared from the rear, stretching and yawning as though he had just risen from slumber. He hardly took notice of the staff bustling behind the counter, instead making a beeline for the coffee machine to pour himself a cup. Maria locked eyes with Wesley for a fleeting moment, conveying a silent but unmistakable message. This was typical. Greg rested against the counter, savoring his coffee as though he were just another patron rather than the one in charge. "Very well, let's not dawdle today," he murmured, though his voice held no genuine command. Moments later, Tyler strolled in, his uniform creased and his phone clutched in his hand. He hardly recognized anyone as he slipped behind the counter, pushing past Maria to reach the register. "It's nice to witness your excitement," Maria remarked with a hint of sarcasm. Tyler exhaled deeply. "This is happening way too soon." Wesley completed the task of wiping down the final table and made his way back to the counter just as the morning rush commenced. Patrons flowed in consistently, primarily requesting their familiar beverages with minimal dialogue. Wesley concentrated on fulfilling orders, ensuring his actions were both precise and deliberate. A sudden flurry of movement by the entrance drew his gaze. A woman carrying a laptop bag and a cup holder from a different cafe. She walked up to the counter, placing her belongings down with a weary exhale. "I placed my order in advance using the app, but there was no confirmation," she remarked, looking at her phone. Tyler hardly lifted his gaze. "Indeed, we don't typically verify that," the woman said with a frown. "Isn't that the whole idea behind ordering in advance?" Tyler gave a nonchalant shrug. "I suppose we can manage it now, but you could have simply placed your order here." Maria faced the espresso machine, silently beginning the process of crafting the drink. Wesley, observing intently, noticed the irritation reflected in the woman's gaze. "That really undermines the whole point," she murmured. Tyler let out a slow breath, casually tapping the register screen. "Hey, we're occupied right now, so just relax." The woman's face grew tense, yet she remained silent. Wesley, on the other hand, had witnessed more than enough. He advanced, maintaining a steady tone. "Thank you for your understanding. Your beverage is currently in the process of being prepared." The woman offered him a thankful nod, yet Tyler responded with a look of indifference. "You don't need to dive in every single time," Tyler murmured quietly. Wesley remained silent. There was no necessity for him to do so. Amidst the ongoing morning hustle, he noted the familiar rhythms unfolding around him. Maria took on the majority of the tasks. Greg lingered in the shadows, while Tyler's demeanor swung from apathy to blatant disregard. Just as the hustle began to fade, an elderly woman with a cane made her way to the counter with deliberate slowness. She adjusted her spectacles as she gazed thoughtfully at the menu. "May I please have a small tea?" she inquired. Maria beamed with delight. "Absolutely. Would you prefer honey or lemon with that?" The woman paused, rummaging through her purse. "Just honey. Thank you." Tyler let out a deep sigh. "Would you prefer to pay with cash or card?" The woman retrieved a petite coin purse, her fingers quivering just a bit as she meticulously counted the bills. Tyler looked at the cash, then shifted his gaze to her. The woman's expression shifted dramatically. "Oh, I believed I had sufficient." Wesley observed Tyler's movement, a clear indication of his lack of enthusiasm. "I'm afraid I can't simply hand it over to you." Before anyone had the chance to speak, Maria quickly dug into her pocket, retrieving $1 and smoothly placing it into the register. "It's taken care of." The woman gazed upward, her expression one of astonishment. "Oh dear, you really don't need to," Maria said, shaking her head with a smile. "It's no trouble whatsoever." Tyler frowned, but just as he was about to respond, Greg finally chose to break the silence. "This isn't a charity," Greg muttered. Maria tensed ever so slightly. "It's just $1. Greg savored his coffee, taking a deliberate, measured sip. "That misses the essence." Wesley cleaned his hands on a napkin, moving ahead with purpose. "It seems that is the crux of the matter," he stated, his tone steady yet resolute. For the first time that day, Greg shifted his gaze toward him. "And what gives you the right to make that claim?" Wesley locked eyes for a brief moment before lifting his hand to remove his glasses. He ran a hand through his hair, gently shaking it back into its natural style. The subtle adjustments to his look were sufficient. Maria's eyes grew a touch wider. She was the first to recognize him. Greg furrowed his brow, studying him intently. Then his expression transformed, moving from slight annoyance to unmistakable fear. Tyler, utterly oblivious, let out a derisive laugh. "So, are you finally thinking about stepping away or what?" Wesley regarded him with a steady gaze. "Negative. I've made the choice to renovate my cafe." A hush enveloped the area. Customers glanced around, feeling the palpable tension in the air, yet silence reigned among them. Maria took a deep breath, understanding dawning upon her. Greg cleared his throat, placing his coffee cup on the table. "Sir, Wesley interrupted. He turned toward Maria and said, "Save it. Walk with me," she said, pausing for a moment before loosening her apron and stepping away from the counter. Wesley motioned for her to come along as he made his way to the seating area. Greg and Tyler stood still, each absorbed in the weight of the moment they had just experienced. Wesley cast a quick look at Maria as they arrived at the far end of the cafe. Maria blinked, realizing she needed to express her regret. For what purpose? For allowing this place to deteriorate to such a state. She gazed at him for an extended moment, then let out a breath. "I thought the corporate world was indifferent, but you actually care, right?" Wesley acknowledged with a nod. "This company was established alongside my father. This establishment is meant to transcend the ordinary cafe experience." Maria folded her arms across her chest. "So what steps will you take in response?" Wesley directed his attention to the counter, where Greg and Tyler lingered uncomfortably, their self-assurance clearly diminished. "Everything," he remarked, as Greg's grip on his coffee cup grew firmer. Tyler adjusted his stance, his eyes darting between Wesley and Maria, as if anticipating the moment when one of them would shatter the stillness. Wesley had no intention of indulging in grandiloquent orations. He had witnessed more than enough. He directed his attention to Greg initially, his voice unwavering. "Your time here is complete." Greg's lips parted ever so slightly, yet silence enveloped him, his complexion drained of color. "Sir, no reasoning will alter my decision," Wesley stated. "You've observed from the sidelines as this place crumbles. There's no guidance from you. Your lack of management and indifference are precisely the reasons this cafe is struggling to succeed." Greg's lips sealed tightly, his eyes flickered toward Tyler, anticipating a response. Yet Tyler appeared equally uncertain. Wesley pressed on. "Please gather your belongings at your earliest convenience, or I will need to arrange for security to assist you in leaving by the end of the day. Regardless, you are no longer in charge of this cafe." Greg's whole demeanor shifted. The arrogance and indifference evaporated with just one breath. He grumbled softly to himself, then pivoted sharply and strode toward the back office, flinging the door open with an excessive amount of force. Tyler exhaled sharply, his head shaking in disbelief. "Wow, that's your approach? Just dismiss people without warning?" Wesley's gaze turned sharply towards him. "You believe I'm oblivious to your actions?" Wesley inquired, his tone steady yet sharp. Tyler scoffed as he observed you belittle customers, neglect your duties, and regard your colleagues as if they were inferior. "I was simply being honest. Individuals enter this space with a sense of entitlement." "Entitlement," Wesley echoed. "In the hospitality industry, your role is to provide service with dignity, regardless of payment methods or the duration of their stay. If that feels overwhelming, perhaps this isn't the right path for you. Tyler rolled his eyes, yet the gesture lacked any trace of conviction now. You have two options, Wesley stated. You can walk away now, or you can demonstrate that you truly merit this position. However, that implies a complete transformation of your current work methods here. Tyler paused, his jaw clenched, stealing a glance at Maria, who returned his look with an unyielding stare. Wesley paused for a moment before continuing, "Make your decision." Tyler let out a sharp breath. "Fine. I will improve." "We'll see," Wesley remarked, "because if I receive another complaint about your treatment of customers or lack of effort, there won't be another chance." Tyler offered a brief nod, his stance rigid, refraining from any argument, while Wesley redirected his attention to Maria. "You're the sole reason this cafe hasn't crumbled entirely." Maria's face remained impassive, yet a glimmer of something, perhaps surprise, flashed in her eyes. "I require a new manager here," Wesley stated. "Someone who genuinely cares about both the customers and the staff." Maria blinked. "You're giving me the position, and you're already handling half of the responsibilities," Wesley remarked, "so I might as well get compensated for it." Maria observed him intently, as though probing for any indication that this might be a trial of sorts. "I refuse to be left with the task of tidying up after others without any genuine power," she expressed. "You won't be," Wesley replied. "I'll make sure of it." Maria folded her arms, lost in thought for a considerable time, before she finally gave a nod of agreement. "Very well, I shall proceed with it." Wesley reached out, and Maria grasped his hand with a strong grip. Having resolved that, Wesley shifted his gaze to the remainder of the cafe. Observers had been present, some more conspicuously than others. With a few exchanged glances and quiet murmurs among them, he began to address the employees. "Transformations are on the horizon. We are revitalizing this cafe to fulfill its true potential." Silence enveloped the moment, devoid of any cheers or enthusiastic response. Yet Wesley found no need for one. The true endeavor was only just commencing. Wesley moved behind the counter, preparing for the task ahead by rolling up his sleeves. The cafe remained bustling with customers waiting, and despite the upheaval, operations had to carry on. Maria was embracing her new role, navigating with a fresh sense of determination. She announced the drink orders, monitored the supplies, and ensured that the other employees remained attentive. Tyler, for his part, maintained a low profile. He labored with an absence of his typical irony, yet his gestures remained rigid. Wesley observed him stealing glances at Maria repeatedly, assessing the extent of her newfound authority. Greg departed in haste, steering clear of anyone's gaze. The weight he typically bore had dissipated, and the cafe seemed transformed. Employees exhibited a newfound vigor, their typical lethargy giving way to a sense of involvement. Wesley prioritized addressing the pressing issues at hand. He inspected the espresso machine, assessed the supply of milk and syrups, and mentally cataloged what required replenishment. Maria quickly understood, nodding as she observed his actions. As the morning hustle began to wane, the tempo finally eased. Wesley paused to lean against the counter, observing as the employees found their groove. Maria walked over to him, clipboard in hand, her eyes scanning the supply list he had begun. She drummed her pen lightly against the edge of the board. "We're running low on the dark roast beans," she remarked. "I placed the order last week, but it still hasn't arrived." Wesley scowled. Who was responsible for managing orders previously? She let out a breath through her nostrils. Greg, and he hardly managed it. "Often, we found ourselves short on supplies and had to improvise." Wesley acknowledged with a nod. This clarified the reason behind the inconsistent availability of certain menu items. He decided to personally reach out to the supplier for a follow-up. Maria surveyed the cafe, observing the staff as they went about their tasks. "Are you planning to eventually find a permanent replacement for Greg?" Wesley crossed his arms. "If you're inquiring about my intentions to invite someone over, you hold the reins here now." She took a moment to absorb that, then nodded slowly. "Excellent." Tyler completed the task of cleaning a blender and dried his hands with a towel. He paused momentarily before approaching. What unfolds next? Wesley locked eyes with him. The outcome is in your hands. Tyler shifted, a palpable tension in the air. I understand that I may not have been particularly useful earlier, but I didn't realize it was significant. Greg was indifferent, and the customers, he realized, then let out a breath. I never imagined they were aware. Maria let out a derisive laugh. They observed. Tyler massaged the nape of his neck. Indeed, that makes sense. Wesley maintained his intensity. A decision lies before you. You can either rise to the occasion and contribute to the resolution, or you can choose to disengage. However, if you choose to remain, you will show customers the respect they deserve. Enough with the justifications. Tyler paused for a moment, then offered a slight nod. Understood. Maria arched an eyebrow. That's all there is to it. Tyler let out a weary breath. What would you like me to express? I understand that I made a mistake. Wesley observed him intently for a brief moment. Then reveal it. Tyler nodded once more, this time with greater conviction. The remainder of the day unfolded with clear advancements. Maria stepped up right away, assigning responsibilities and ensuring that everyone stayed on track. Wesley noticed the staff embracing their duties with greater seriousness, and even Tyler held back on his usual sarcastic comments. As the afternoon stillness settled in, Wesley took a moment to draw Maria away from the crowd. A proper transition plan is essential, he stated. Corporate support will assist you with training, but the daily operations are now in your hands, Maria said, crossing her arms. What is the situation regarding the hiring gaps? We continue to face a shortage of staff. Wesley mentioned that he would approve temporary increases for overtime as we work on bringing in new hires. I would like you to participate in the hiring process. You have a keen sense of what this place truly requires. Maria's expression became a touch gentler. You're really allowing me to make choices? Wesley offered a subtle nod. That's the essence of leadership. She breathed out, giving her head a subtle shake. Understood. Let's proceed with precision. As the clock approached closing time, the atmosphere of the cafe had transformed. Workers departed with a sense of relief in their shoulders, and the atmosphere felt more buoyant. Wesley recognized that there remained tasks ahead, yet this marked the initial genuine stride towards mending what had been shattered. As he secured the door, Maria lingered next to him, her arms folded tightly across her chest. You're not planning to vanish back into the corporate world, are you? She inquired. Wesley gave a slow, deliberate shake of his head. No, I'll be here, she nodded, content. Silently, she pivoted and made her way to her vehicle. Wesley observed her departure, then turned his gaze to the cafe for a final moment. Tomorrow, the true reconstruction would commence.